Tente is hard to find. Don't forget, her title includes the information. She whose spirit is slippery and appears like a season. Which applies to her body, too. Sometimes she is away, sometimes she is next to you, and you will not realize. Sometimes she is very much here, right in your face. But you will never catch her. She is one who catches. To love or to crush.
If you want to be sure to find her, she appears in 4 films that bear her name, produced and directed by the Noisebringers. Their affiliate Afulo Didim Nikefalosi and their other affiliate Jonathan O'Hare made between 2020 and 2023. It is unclear if the film you are watching now is part of the series. Tente's spirit, again, is slippery.
In Mycorrhizal Noise, she appears like a season in the text Zombie in Zambia, which will be followed by other stories presently in print, traditional and Defalia. Also in Mycorrhizal Noise, more of her spoken words have been transcribed in 3 WhatsApp calls, Tente's Lover, and Tente's Sexuality. In Luba Sings, Tente, who is still a mushroom and not yet a sorceress at the time of the events, literally moves a mountain to please an olive-loving boy. Outside of Mycorrhizal Noise, and together with the women of her tribe, the Balafuni, she facilitated and supervised the making of a series of audio albums that are all different versions of the piece Chilean Bonbon in Chilean Bomboe.
There is no easy and straightforward way of describing a few 100-year-old young sorceress. Her official title, as you probably know, is Her Royal Highness Chieftainess Tente, the mushroom that the crocodile ate, she whose spirit is slippery and appears like a season, sovereign of the chieftainessdom of Balafuni, those to whom water flows. She was not directly documented before 2020, when Nikefalosi and the Noisebringers started filming her, but there are testimonies from other authors. In Mycorrhizal Noise, William and Cooper both testify that Tente was present in Ochiaijuku, Japan, in 1844, together with the Noisebringers. Tente herself mentions in a WhatsApp conversation with her mother that she has been in the UK for 4 centuries, but the geographical indication seems to be a lie to cover up her constant travelling. She is a mighty Zambian sorceress who spends most of her time saving the world. In modern terminology, she would be considered a very discreet yet crucial superheroine.
Most of what we know about Tente has been written, filmed, or supervised by Afulididim Nikefalosi, who calls herself an answer to the challenge. Show me a contemporary mixture of Amos Tutulo and Zora Neale Hurston. She is Zambian too, but unlike Tente, who is a woman of orality and traditional wisdom, and is somehow close to Okot Pitek's character Lawino, Afulididim is a scholar who grew up in a simple rural environment and became a renowned ethnographer trained in prestigious universities. That's for her Zora Neale Hurston side. Although Afulididim did not grow up in segregated socialities like Neale Hurston or her other idol, Frantz Fanon, she does share with them a double culture, her indigenous black birth, one, and a modern, global northern one, which gives her unique insights on both her culture of origin, making her a self-ethnographer, and global North culture, making her an Afrocentric ethnographer.
But here's a plot twist for you. At the end of Zombie in Zambia, although it is not straightforwardly stated, we understand that Tente and Afulididim Nikefalosi are the same person. This fact is confirmed, although still not straightforwardly, in traditional and Defalia. Does this mean that Tente needs to hide behind Afulididim to reveal her more critical side? Or does that mean that Afolo-Didim is too humble or even shy to demonstrate her sorcery to her friends and colleagues, including the Noisebringers? Is it easier to clearly separate Tente, the woman of action, and Nika-Folosi, the woman of words? Only she can answer.
And here's another plot twist. We established that Afuli-Didim is Tente's pseudonym to sign ethnographic and academic considerations, but she is also the pseudonym of the anonymous real-world Zambian young woman and doctor in decolonial studies who has been a real-world affiliate of the Noisebringers almost from the start. This real-world woman hides behind Afuli-Didim not only for cultural and social reasons, as the real world is not ready yet to accept her multiple identities, but also because Afuli-Didim is the entity that gives her total freedom. As Afuli-Didim, she can share her experience as a Zambian woman and academic who has been living in the global north since she finished high school without being gouged or validated. Ironically, global north includes Australia in her case in a very noisebringery way of making even compasses noisy.
And of course, there is a third plot twist. Real-world Afolo-Didim has been the romantic partner of one of the Noisebringers all that time. In Zombie in Zambia, this Noisebringer is named Brice Katran. The border between mycorrhizal noise and real world in Katran and Afolo-Didim's Tente's life is more than blurry. The differentiation is willingly jeopardized. Both the films and the text show places where they have never been, or have been but are not where they are said to be. All the ideas and claims do not necessarily represent the author's opinions, but they have indeed been heard in the real world. Tente and Katran's love in the book is inspired by their love in the real world, but real-world Afolo-Didim and real-world Katran also take inspiration from their characters when they're in real-world Zambia. They take a car, they travel around, and they listen. They also regularly perform the healing ritual described at the end of Zombie in Zambia.
I think the key words here are Afrocentrism and Black feminism. Chinua Achebe has paved the way of Afrocentrism by making it clear that there was a global north way of seeing and understanding things that cannot be universal, because it is doomed to be biased. He suggests confronting views and ways of thinking. These were ideas that ethnographers such as Claude Lévi-Strauss and Georges Devreux had been hinting towards since the mid-20th century. But the arrival of people like Achebe, Fanon, and Pipitek was crucial in understanding Eurocentrism because they had the means to make Global North people understand their biases by using Global North terminology itself. They showed how global northerners seemed unable to understand other ways of articulating ideas than their own. Afuli-Didim and Tente are modern members of this tradition of intercultural critical thinking. They see things from an African perspective, so-called Afrocentric, and they have the tools of the global north to share it with the latter.
As for black feminism, in this case it is not to be understood in its global north context. Afolo-Didim knows and supports Kimberlé Crenshaw's concept of intersectionality that eventually rearticulated global north black feminism. But Afolo-Didim and Tente's black feminism is about feminism in and from Africa and what is specific to it.
Note that by Africa, we mean the part of the continent that starts at the south of the Sahara Desert and goes all the way down to South Africa. Stephen Patterson Belcher explains simply why thousands of tribes on such an enormous surface share some global cultural traits. Isolated from the rest of the world by the desert for possibly thousands of years, they traveled within this continent a lot, transporting myths, habits, and customs.
In Zombie in Zambia, the mayoress of Chisenga, Malawi, shares a bold statement. When's the last time an African man raised a spear to save the day since Shaka Zulu? Now they all think they're Achebe and they write books whilst we women continue to save the continent from economic collapse and giant monsters. We are now at the heart of Tente and Afulo-Didim's mission, telling the story of African women. Although not exactly taboo, there is still a lot of euphemizing of the role of women in Africa. Recent anthropological research has showed that women's role in hunter-gatherer tribes, men hunt, women gather, is not as clear as we have thought for a long time. Nonetheless, they still had a much more crucial role in the survival of these tribes than men. Such tribes were the main model in Africa for thousands of years. Tente's adventures claim that women of today are also holding the reins of survival and development in African societies at large.
Surprisingly, successful African female authors, such as Ellen Banda Aku, still depict rather dependent women. In her book Patchwork, women are powerful in the sense of Marie Ndaye. They indeed power through extreme violent situations. But Banda Aku's female characters still revolve around a central male figure. It seems to be in African literature written by men that the sense of respect and/or fear of women is most present. While many founding myths recalled by Belcher demonstrate and explain a general fear of women, many 20th and 21st century authors express more or less openly the importance and power of women in African societies.
In most characters in Amas Tutula's novels are men. The few women are often superior to their male counterparts. The brave African huntress is a better warrior than her older brothers and spends the book saving them. Ajaya's sister in Ajaya and His Inherited Poverty might be a secondary character, but she is much smarter than her brother, who is incapable of any anticipation to the extent that he succeeds at the end by pure sheer luck. And the most knowledgeable, wise, and omnipotent character of Tutula's whole bibliography is the witch herbalist of the remote town, who knows everything, can cure anyone, and is immensely generous. In a very documented and historically accurate depiction of the history of the Bemba tribe, George Cassonde makes it clear that until the beginning of the 20th century, at least, chieftainesses were sitting together with chiefs and making decisions together. Set in the late 1970s, Alec F. C. Musonda's male hero, Maliango, might brag like an arrogant peacock, but the adventures of his female counterparts demonstrate quite clearly and with great humor that Zambian women are in control of their own destiny and, often, their men's. Finally, Pepitex wrote 2 books to show how African men, represented by his character Okol, fell into the trap of modernity, capitalist mirages, and global north perverse logic. In the meantime, Lawino, who represents African women, has the wisdom and knowledge to see clearly only to denounce in vain these illusions and mirages.
Put simply, Afulo-Didim and Tente are the daughters of all these characters. They have known traditional ways of living. Then they have learnt and experienced firsthand the lies and delusions of modernity and the global north. They are storytellers and whistleblowers. They want to pull people out of this trap and suggest Afrocentric solutions to global world problems. Mostly written in dialogue by French artist Brice Catran and Zambian academic Afulo-Didim Nikefulosi, Tente's adventures are exactly that. A benevolent dialogue between people genuinely willing to understand each other in the book, in the films, and in the real world. Such a project requires the multiplicity of media and porosity between fiction and reality. Nikefalosi's voice is shared sometimes with humour, sometimes with anger, in texts, films and articles. But she also wants to create concrete precedents and show that different ideas and people can coexist together in harmony, most notably in Mycorrhizal Noise, where different people of different generations with different cultures and backgrounds can eventually demonstrate that there is room for everyone.